Hi, I'm Chris Bishop and welcome back to our medium-term budget statement coverage here on CNBC Africa. Well, if you're a loyal taxpayer in South Africa, are you going to sleep easier tonight? The Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, had a few encouraging words about the state-owned enterprises and the way they'll be running the future, but were those words enough? The government has poured billions of rand into state-owned enterprises down the years and is likely to pour billions more, according to the Finance Minister's speech today. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Dr Sam Koma, Milpark Education's Head of Department of Research, Seydou Kane, MD at Eaton, South Africa, an energy company, and Professor Makgopa Tshehla of the Unisa Graduate School of Business Leadership. Just actually, before we start this conversation, we've all been talking about the rand on the way in. Let's just have a quick check-in to see how it's doing on the strength of the Finance Minister's words. I'm sure there you are. So 15, it's over. So that's something nearly 2.5%. So that is an indication of it. But let me just go around the table here to start with. I said that a few encouraging words. Was it enough? Starting with you, Mr. Koma.
Yes, thanks, Chris, for having me. I think on my part, the significant pronouncement coming from the medium-term budget policy statement is that government is now paying more attention to the rolling out of the infrastructure fund, which was announced by the minister in his budget speech in Feb to say government is going to allocate 100 billion on the infrastructure fund, but it's a blended finance fund because they now want the private sector to also contribute to the fund. And it's good that he announced progress made so far regarding the appointment of Dr. Sean Phillips, who's now going to drive the implementation of the infrastructure fund housed within the Development Bank of Southern Africa. So it's a positive for me because we need infrastructure investment on the part of the public sector and to a larger extent getting the private sector with their capital, with their expertise and also their commitment to this.
But the point is about the infrastructure. One of the points the Finance Minister made in Cape Town was that everyone wants infrastructure, but nobody wants to pay. I mean, I saw to a lot of booing and catcalling in the House. He said, we're going to keep up with e-tolls. Yep. I mean, he said that you must pay for the services rendered, but I'm not sure everyone feels the same way. So, Mr. Tshehla, just tell me, what did you take from the Finance Minister's speech on state-owned enterprises that gave you any sort of hope?
I think on the state-owned enterprises, it was very clear that some of the measures are not really working. The government keeps on bailing out the state-owned entities, more especially Eskom. I like the comment that he made about SAA to say we can have an equity partner, that it can be bailed out, but the issue of Eskom, we cannot leave it alone because once we leave Eskom alone, the whole economy is going to collapse. So the other takeaway was on the public wage bill, I think, which is significantly close to 40%. But I'm not sure of the measures that he put in place, such as freezing the salaries of public servants, whether those things are going to work or not.
So, but then again, the encouraging words. I mean, one thing he said, SAA is unlikely ever to generate sufficient cash flow to sustain operations, which I think is a depressing thought. But then he said, I think we can fix this thing. I mean, is it not a case you should just sell it, as the Finance Minister himself has said many times?
I think he made a comment that the companies that has business models, outdated business model, they must just close shops because business models needs to be updated frequently because economic conditions changes. For an example, you cannot have the same model that SAA operated with for the last 20 years or so.
Well, it's an admission at least. Now, moving to Eskom, Seydou Kane, that's your energy is your thing. I mean, there's going to be billions more. The figures we were trying to recall, was it 21 next year, 33 billion, and then 10 after that. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people out there, it will be a lot of taxpayers will be very disappointed with that. And obviously the rand, looking at it, I don't know exactly what they wanted the Finance Minister to do about Eskom, but people are not very happy by the looks of it.
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, the issue of Eskom is not going to be a quick fix, and I think that it is clear by this pronouncement by the minister that the state is going to back Eskom, so which is a good news. I think that on the other side, the pronouncement were also in line with the recent IRP that was issued actually earlier this week, and we believe that going in that direction, and just like the professor just mentioned, focusing on changing the business model of Eskom from an integrated utility to a more distributed distribution center, lighter assets, more nimbler as an organization, will definitely prepare Eskom for the future.
Professor Tshehla, I mean, we all saw this week the release of the roadmap for Eskom and how it's planned to be unbundled into 3: transmission, generation, and what have you. Do you think this is the answer, though, to an organisation that's obviously quite rotten at its core?
It's a challenge. What we did not see today on the budget, on this 59 billion, this year is 23 billion, next year 33, the other year is 10 billion, but it is not clear how this will be integrated into the unbundling. For an example, the special paper that was released by Minister Kortan yesterday states that the transmission business unit will be functional by March 2020, and then the other 2 business units will be functional by March 2021, which I think is very ambitious, taking into consideration the fact that they still have not appointed the CEO. You still have the CRO, Chief Restructuring Officer, which I feel there might be a conflict in roles between the CEO and the Chief Restructuring Officer. So I'm not sure if this will yield result in the long run.
Well, I'll say, I'm just coming over to you, Sam. I mean, talking about the CEO, people were talking to me saying, could we bring back Jacob Moraka again? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he left long before these problems, but I don't know. Just what would you think about that?
Yeah, sure, Chris. I heard that he's one of the potential candidates. Jacob is one of the suitable candidates for the job on the basis of the fact that he's an engineer. He worked for Eskom for quite some time. And this is the point that I've been emphasizing, that for Eskom to turn around, they need to appoint a board that comprises largely of board members who are drawn from the energy sector to give proper policy direction and to play an oversight role, and have the executive, in this instance, a CEO who is also an engineer but has some managerial experience, some management qualification to be able to properly oversee the functioning of the entity. So it will be a good decision to be made, even if they don't get Jacob, but get someone who's from the energy sector, who's an engineer, who is au fait with the operations of the entity. So I fully back that kind of
what did you think?
I just wanted to take him on the oversight of the board. I know there was one, I think it's today, one of the board members cry foul of the political interference, etc. So I'm not sure, maybe you can give us a commentary in terms of because the state-owned entities, the major shareholders is government. Now, how do you turn around with those?
Yeah, exactly. Currently, I think Parliament is deliberating on a shareholder management bill, which seeks to clearly outline the roles and responsibilities of the government shareholder, represented by the minister and other players. In this instance, will be the board and also the executive. But the issue of political interference is what led to the dysfunctionality of Eskom in the first place. And colleagues, remember, part of having the Zondo Commission arises from the Thuli Madonsela report, which found malfeasance, fraud allegations, and corruption facing the entity. And later they had to broaden the terms of reference of the commission to look at other entities and other organs of state. So it seems we are back to square one. If you look at the remark of Busisiwe Mavuso yesterday in Parliament, she's really worried about that aspect. Yeah.
The other issue, if I may chip in, the issue of labor force. I know there's a challenge to reduce the staff complement by 15,000?
55,000.
Yes.
No, 15,000.
Yeah,
40 odd something thousand. So it is, you're still going to have a pushback from the
The unions, yeah, no, they got no. I mean, not only that. I mean, I remember interviewing Pravin Gordhan a couple of years ago, saying, "Why doesn't he cut the civil service in half?" And he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to put 30,000 people plus their families into our time?" I said, "No, I mean it's what the markets are calling for." And he said to me at the time, he said, "It's what the country is calling for." It's one of those difficult ones. But speaking about the political interference and the leadership of the state-owned enterprises, I mean, let's be fair, Seydou, I mean, in your company, if you're not performing, there's a wave bye-bye and they'll open the door for you, like all private companies. But sometimes the people who run these state-owned enterprises, terrible things can happen, and they have a huge salary and they have a bailout at the end. I mean, I mean, is that ever going to change?
So this is a very important topic because, you know, we can talk about, before even talking about technology, the assets and everything, you know, the topic around leadership, sound leadership, have a board that can make and guide the organization in the right direction is fundamental. Because however we look at it, you know, Eskom and a number of other SOEs will have to transform, we have to change. And we're talking about cultural change. And that cultural change only works if it comes from the top, if there's a consistent message that comes from the top and that is replicated throughout the organization. So it is a crucial topic, a crucial element that needs to be fixed. And the appointment of the CEO, you know, we're talking about potential conflicts, you know, between the CRO, the CEO, etc. It's going to play out a very important, you know, role in terms of how the future of Eskom rolls out.
Because there's another Professor Tshehla, but I'll bring you in a second. I mean, one of the panelists this morning was saying to me that, or this afternoon was saying to me that, the ANC can't be seen as like a job-creating machine, you know, where you can go and do a job, it doesn't matter what you do, it's okay. Do you think that, then also the panelists were saying that the right people, the right technocrats should be put in the right places. Do you think under the Ramaphosa government we're seeing that?
You're talking about what level?
Yeah, state-owned enterprises, people running the show.
We are not seeing that precisely because one, as you're saying, is political deployee or political recommendation, etc. So, but if you go through an independent appointment of those people, that I don't think you'll have an issue. But if I'm appointed by, let's say, by the president, obviously I'll take instructions from him one way or the other.
What do you think, sir?
Yeah, I think with the current administration of President Ramaphosa, we have seen some shift in terms of focusing on merit-based appointments. If you look at the appointment of the NPA head, Batohi, transparent process, very competitive. The appointment of Kisweta, the SARS head, same. So if you can have a similar transparent process, recruitment and appointment process within the SOEs, that will also go a long way.
Well, Kisweta is a good one because when he was appointed back there, I mean, we all know what he's about, and a lot of people tell me, a lot of people are unhappy in SARS about it, and I thought, good, you know, I mean, because basically this guy's no nonsense, you know.
No, but what he did, out of those, is it the commission, one of the commissions, he did implement most of those recommendations, and also the fact that he appointed his own team, because the challenge, I don't want to talk about the public protector issue. The challenge is if you adopt a team where you've got a previous regime, it becomes a challenge to manage.
The whole machinery.
No, sure. Well, Seydou, if I could also, from a private sector point of view, one encouraging words I got for a business channel from Tito Mboweni today was new cash is no longer going to be in the form of equity, but it's going to be loans. And he repeated it. He said, it's going to be loans. Do you, is that a good sign for you?
Well, loans come with accountability, right? So, and hopefully, you know, there's going to be people behind to push and get one element that I really believe is lacking, that I haven't seen it, which is sense of urgency. Right, so which might be internally, you know, managed, but is not transpiring maybe to the broader public, and that's what is critical, you know, both because of the weight of Eskom, you know, that's the sector that I know, energy, with the weight of Eskom on the economy, but also for the own survival of Eskom. Things are moving very fast, and one critical point that I'd like to draw attention on is this clause in the IRP which allows for South African to self-generate their energy, right? So we always have to think that a customer that can self-generate, leaves the grid, is not coming back. And those who can do it are actually those are the customer that a company, a utility, would want to retain. So, and that can quickly lead to what we call a utility death spiral, right? So that's, I think, the core element that needs to be avoided, and this critical sense of urgency is required in all the actions and policies that will be taken.
Well, somebody once said to me in this studio that Eskom's the only company in the world that doesn't want customers to use too much of its products because there's a shortage. But I don't know. I mean, are you a bit happier looking ahead at Eskom now after what we've seen today? I mean, one other thing Tito said, we're all in this together. Certainly we are. I mean, everyone is future is at stake.
I think there was always an issue to say this bailout. What are the control measures? How are they being utilized? So I'm happy by the fact that there will be loans with interest. Obviously, the loans will come with the terms and conditions in terms of how they are utilized. So in that way, I think we are stepping in the right direction.
Some final comment from you, and then we'll have a quick look at the RAN before we go.
Yeah,
and,
I think it's still on Eskom. The funny special condition or the precondition that has been said is that there will be no payment of performance bonuses to these executives. And I always ask a question. Eskom is faced with a skills deficit, especially the executive level. They lost Phakamani, they lost other senior executives. They want to attract skilled engineers. Who's going to join them if they cannot pay these perks and benefits? So I hope they'll review that condition in future.
Okay, gentlemen, just before we go, we're going to have one last look at the RAND. Apparently it's been weakening since we've been talking. The last half an hour, it's now 15.02. So it seems that, and bonds are weakening as well, it seems that the people out there do not like what they heard today at all. But thank you very much indeed for your time and insights. That was Dr Sam Koma, Milpark Education's Head of Department Research, Professor Makgopa Tshehla of the Unisa Graduate School of Business Leadership, and Seydou Kane, MD at Eaton Energy, South Africa.